Hello and welcome to the Luna Holistic Podcast and the Lightworker Global Call to Action series. I'm Geneva Robbins and I'm a Reiki Master here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so lovely to have you all here. And before I dive into the content, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the Indigenous people of the world, and in particular, the Treaty 7 people where I live in Calgary, Canada. Thank you so much and welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you are here. It's just wonderful to be in community with you, and to have you here and listening is just lights me up inside. So thank you for everybody who's joining live and joining later. It's wonderful to have you. If you are joining live, you can type in the chat and we can answer some of your questions or read some of your comments as we go through. And if you're joining later, please type away in the comments and we can address or answer some of your questions as we go. But thank you. Just very briefly, because we do call this the Global Lightworker Called Action, of what do I mean when I say Lightworker? Well, for me, Lightworker is a sort of a catch-all phrase for people who are very compassionate, have big hearts, really, really care deeply about a lot of different things. You are empathetic, you're sensitive, you're a feeler, and you maybe even feel called to a greater purpose of service and care to help the people, planet, animals, and so I feel like most of us have that light inside to share with people. And I think that's such a big, important piece of the work that we do here at Luna Holistic, is to really teach you the skills to keep that sort of sensitive, empathetic edge, keep all of your sensitive gifts intact, and stay connected in a world that might seem very disconnected. So that's kind of what I mean by that. And we'll be sharing a lot more about empathy in this go around. I want to introduce my helper today. I've got Kyla Shepherd on the line. She's a Reiki Master here in Calgary with us at Luna Holistic. So say hi, Kyla.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's so great to be with you.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to chat with you today. So thanks a bunch.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a bit about empaths and empathy, and how basically to stay in that keep all of your gifts as a sensitive light worker person, to keep that highly developed empathy and intuition and your energetic skills and gifts intact and safe, and at the same time be able to hold very big space and for other people in their vulnerability, as we're all going through massive change personally and in the world at large. So we'll be talking about that today. But before we get into that, I always like to start things with a meditation. So we'll do a bit of a grounding meditation, so you can just get into a comfortable sitting position, and gently close your eyes. When you close your eyes, you can go into that deeper world, that expanded, calm state. And when you slow your breathing down, you naturally will bring your heart rate lower and everything will settle. So we'll start off with just a nice grounding, connecting exercise. So just gently feel into the energy within the earth. Just below your feet, just below the base of your spine, is a vast resource of energy, of support, of an ancient, nurturing, and wise presence. This earth energy is there for you every moment of the day, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. That earth energy supports you, nourishes you, and guides you. Allow that energy to rise up to greet you, feeling completely supported, nourished, and peaceful. Feeling that deep connection between you and the earth, growing down like roots, feeling snug, safe, and cozy. Knowing that no matter where you go, no matter where you are all held dearly and tenderly in Earth's embrace. And then you can begin to bring in the light at the top of your crown, at the top of your head. There's an infinite source of energy and light. And allow that energy to flow down through the top of your head, filling your brain through the third eye, down through the throat and neck, softening in through the shoulders, bringing a peaceful expression to your face, flowing down into your heart and chest, creating more space for your heart to expand. Letting everything go with a soft sigh. Softening in through the solar plexus, the upper belly. Relaxing in through your whole trunk. Flowing the energy down through to your lower belly. Relaxing in through the hips and low back. And flowing that energy all the way down your legs. Shining out the bottoms of your feet. And visualizing, sensing, or feeling a rainbow of light around you. First with a layer of red right close to your body, cozy and secure. And then beyond the red, orange, vibrant and bright. Beyond the orange, yellow, invigorating and confident. Beyond the yellow, a layer of green all around you, compassionate and clear. Beyond the green, a layer of blue, honest. Beyond the blue, indigo, serene and centered. Beyond the indigo, a layer of violet all around the edges of your aura. That energy bubble that surrounds you, your body, your energy field. Now expand that bubble of light out to the size that is most comfortable. It gives you this perfect balance of feeling cozy and safe and expanded and free. Feeling like there's space around you to breathe and there's support around you to feel connected. You'll bring your hands down your legs. Just with your hands facing, touching your legs, you can just smooth the energy down your legs, just connecting back into the earth, letting any excess energy just go straight into the earth. And any energy you'd like to keep, you can stay with you. And then with your hands facing your body, just a foot or so away from you, you can smooth that energy out from head to toe, giving a nice little energy bubble around you and giving that layer of your aura a little pat to seal in that healing in divine love, light, and wisdom. Wonderful. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And if you'd like to type in the chat what you experienced, I'd love to hear from you. It's always so lovely to hear how all of those meditations sort of land on you and how you feel about that. For me, I always feel like I'm centered and I'm connected to myself and I'm sort of back inside me. And that there's a little bit of like sort of gathering all of my energy that's maybe been dispersed through different thoughts and interactions with others and just bringing all of that sort of back home. That's kind of how I feel, and I feel very peaceful and calm and happy. So, Kyla, how did that go for you?
Oh, that was lovely. Thank you, Geneva. I also feel very calm and peaceful and joyful and centered. I felt like a blanket of earth energy rose up from the earth and just enveloped me. So I snuggled under my chin and wrapped over my head and just cocooned in there. And it also felt like cozying up into a hammock in the summer, just like so relaxed, so nurtured and taken care of. Blissful. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I love that hammock. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been getting some hammock time in the summer and it's very nice. So just that feeling of being weightless and held and floating and like safe and free at the same time, which is sometimes seems like opposite ideas to to feel snug and cozy and secure and yet also free to expand at the same time. And that's what I find with grounding, breathing the energy through and really, visualizing that layer of light, the aura around, in particular, that rainbow, just even just going over
Mm-hmm.
the aura 7 times to just sort of clear stuff and put you back in your little container.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular too, of like, sometimes we can feel hemmed in by life, and when we
Mm-hmm.
almost visualize like expanding that aura bubble out, and you can make
Mm-hmm.
it as big as you want. It could be kilometers big, it could be as big and bright and full as you need it to be for you to feel like you've got that space and freedom. Sometimes I feel like, and the aura sort of ripples off in layers, like states are out from us. So you've kind of got a layer of your energy field that's really close to your body, about, kind of a foot away from you, and then another one sort of a meter away, 3 feet, and it just sort of ripples out, that you've got these sort of different states of the aura. And um and so there's a level of the aura that just sort of ripples out from you to infinity, which I think is also really wonderful concept, that there's no end to where you or your presence is, and at the farthest reaches of your energy is where we are all connected, and you're connected to everything, and everything is part of you. And yeah, so I love working with the aura. I feel like that is a really big piece of staying sort of in that sort of empathetic container, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so
That
that
was
you
a
can.
beautiful description. Thank
Yeah.
you. And like the addition that you added with the expanding it as far as you need, that was a beautiful addition too, particularly for empaths. And when you were talking about it, my thought was like, yeah, like an empath going into a crowd, because we tend to not really like that situation. But if you can make your aura many layers, as big as you want, that could make it easier
It
for
does make
sure.
it easier. Yeah, yeah. I'll just share some comments here from Natalie. I was running errands this morning before the session, and I was a bit unfocused. So this is a wonderful way to calm and center me back. Love it. Oh, thank you. And from Bea, I feel very clear, so much energy flowing through and opening up. That's
Oh,
wonderful. So
lovely.
wonderful. Yeah, that's so fantastic. Yeah, we the topic today sort of evolved from a question that Kyla had been asking. So I'm so glad that you're here, so we can talk about it more. We talked about it a lot. We've talked about this a lot,
Mm-hmm.
which is that like empaths is another word for, light worker, sensitive feeling person who really deeply feels the energies of others, and is very aware of, and has a highly developed degree of compassion and concern for for others. And part sometimes, and it's a beautiful thing. I think empaths are super people. You've got a superpower, and your superpower is to understand and know and to have deep compassion and empathy for others, and to be very sensitive to what is happening with your energy, with other people's energy, with the world's energy. And that makes you it tends to bring all of these very, very highly positive skill sets, which is usually a very advanced intuition, um, an ability to work with the energies of nature and Reiki and energy healing, and to really understand in a very deep, visceral way what things feel like inside your body and outside of your body, and to ultimately, through energy healing methods like Reiki, to learn how to move that energy in a way that benefits you for self-healing, but you can also help others with it as well. And So there's a ton of really important gifts that empaths have, but sometimes with feeling so much, you are very, very sensitive to the disconnection, to the harm, to the the really painful experiences that are happening within the world, and sometimes you can get swamped with emotion, and sometimes absorb emotions that are not yours, and you're just sort of feeling everything all of the time, and getting overwhelmed by all of the things. Um, uh, and so what I love, so I put myself in that category. What I love about Reiki is that until I learned Reiki, I felt like I was sort of my energy was dispersed, and when I learned Reiki, I learned these tools to stay connected and grounded and centered within myself, and over time I've cultivated this ability to stay centered within myself and be in a very stable energy field, and give myself permission, which I think is a really big piece of it, to stay out of other people's energies. And and that is actually a very big compassionate move. Um, one of the questions that sort of arose from our conversations was, how can I be supportive without taking on what other people feel? And I think that's such an important, just even how that question is phrased is important, because uh, when we're really highly sensitive people, sometimes we equate caring with and being invested in somebody else's well-being, and taking on their emotions, feeling with them. We equate that with compassion, that is kindness, or that it's something that we're doing for them. And to not jump right in and dive into their emotion and be in it with them is to be sort of withholding compassion and concern. And and I think that's an idea of that's kind of taught and reinforced by our culture, this idea of this, like, sort of this saintly martyr, of sort of giving away everything, giving away all of your energy, jumping in and suffering with others is sort of viewed as a good thing. But I'm going to advocate the opposite, that it's actually a selfish thing, which is because, for a bunch of reasons. Because when you jump in to somebody else's pain and feel it as though it's your own, it decreases your ability to act, and it decreases your ability to hold space for a long time steadily for people who are in various states of pain and disruption. And and that by taking a step back, it actually empowers you, because then you're clear and in your own power, in your own bubble, in your own container. And it is basically a beautiful vote of confidence in that other person's ability to solve their own problems. It's a way of seeing that person as not as pitiful and needing your rescuing, but is seeing them as strong, as confident, as capable, and really shining a light on their best qualities, um, and giving them that freedom and space to uh, create solutions for themselves. Um, one of the things that I see happening with empathy, and this is something that I got from an article on the Greater Good Network or magazine, is this idea of the difference between empathic distress and empathic concern. And it's basically where you are standing. So when we step into somebody else's shoes, and feel their distress or their pain as though it was our own, it puts us in a state of distress. And it's because we're standing, we've basically almost projected ourselves into their feet. And that's a very distressing thing, because then you're feeling all of your own emotions and theirs at the same time. And empathic concern is basically the step back into yourself. So to stand sort of within yourself and view the other person as other, as though instead of as viewing it as you. And but I think that step out is a very normal, natural thing to do as well, especially as empaths. We tend to understand love, connection, harmony, all of the positive, joyful emotions because they are natural to us. But we don't understand cruelty, pain, distress. Like, we don't understand that of how somebody could be hurtful to another person, human. And so in our attempt to understand it, we step into it to try to, it's an information gathering exercise. And it's okay to step into somebody else's shoes. I think it's sometimes necessary, for a brief moment to gather information. But it's very, very important that as soon as you've got that understanding or awareness, to step or catch yourself outside of yourself, is to take that energetic step back inside. And part of the reason that's difficult, especially for empaths, is that sometimes we're trained that stepping into somebody else's shoes is noble. And that to take a step back is it can be equated with being unfeeling or uncaring or callous. And that somehow we are retreating or distancing ourselves from the person. But it's actually, I think that's nothing could be further from the truth, because I mean, really, as sensitive, caring people, you can't turn off caring. You're going to care regardless. But what happens when you take that step back into yourself is you keep the compassion. It's a compassionate move. You care just as much when you're standing inside yourself as you were when you were stepped in the other person's shoes. But what happens is that when you step back into yourself, your spiritual energy and the energy within your physical body are now lined up. So instead of being diffused and everywhere and maybe in 100 different places, you have all of your energy lined up inside you. Your reference point and your viewpoint of where you are sitting is inside, not outside. And when you are lined up with when your spiritual chakras and energy centers are lined up with your physical centers and energy and chakras, then you have your maximum power back and your ability to ground and form a stable aura field around you. Because if you're stepped out into multiple people's shoes, try to imagine forming an aura around all of that. It gets very muddled. Everybody needs their own grounding cord, their own channel from the divine, and their own stable aura bubble. And even if two people are very, very close, even if you're scooched right up next to another person, everybody needs that stable bubble of light around them, and that energy field that makes us all feel very self-contained yet free. And when we are in that aura bubble, that's when we feel safest. That's when we have the greatest access to our tools, to the power of our breath to move energy and emotion through us, to ground. And when you are in that empowered state, first of all, without saying a word, it teaches other people how to do that for themselves. Um, they will just start mirroring you. The other thing is that it actually increases your capacity to hold bigger space for people, because then you're able to be in that, you have access to all of your skills and all of your energy, and you're able to listen to people without taking on that energy. And if you do take on that energy, you're able to catch it, and you're able to ground and clear it. Um, and sometimes just that simple, like, checking in or asking yourself, is this feeling I'm feeling mine, or does it belong to somebody else's? And is it, am I stepped into somebody else's shoes, or can I step back into my own? If I, and I think having a meditation grounding practice, a practice where you're maintaining your aura and your energy bubble, which is all skills we teach you in Reiki, that can help you clear energy that you maybe have gathered. But then also knowing that to stay out of somebody else's stuff is the most compassionate thing that you can do for them, because you give them this power, and this sort of huge sort of vote of confidence to shine a light on what is strong in them, that they are a capable person, that that they are resilient and courageous. One of the things that happens when we step into another person's shoes, in that sort of state of empathetic distress or trying to understand somebody else's suffering, is that because we already know the joy, the love, the peace, the harmony, we're not looking for that when we're stepped in somebody else's shoes. We're looking for what we don't understand, not what we do understand. So we're looking for, like, seeking information about that person's pain, but we're not always aware of that person's joy, their resilience, their light, their positivity, their resources, their courage, their ingenuity. We're not looking for those things because those are things we already understand. And so we can sometimes have, not deliberately, but just by nature of just trying to seek information, we have a filter that doesn't allow us to see that person that we are concerned about, or the animal or plant or whatever it is that we're concerned about, has not just suffering, but also strength, courage, resilience, tools at their disposal. When we step back, it's very plain, because then we're back in ourselves, back in our power, back in a frame of reference point where we're better able to see the full picture, which is that people aren't just one thing, and they're not the moment of crisis or trauma, just that. People are many things, and they have many resources. And that's such a huge part of Reiki as well, which is that we hold the vision of the person's well-being greater than they may hold the vision of their illness or their suffering. And that the greatest gift you can give another person is to see them as well, as happy, as healthy, as wealthy, whatever it is that they want in their lives. even asking them that question, if this issue was resolved, how would you feel, or what would happen? And I think there's a little bit of like this surrender um, to a higher power of, to know that if we can visualize it, if we can see a brighter future for somebody, if we can imagine it, then it must mean that on some vibrational spiritual level that energy exists for that person. And we don't have to know how they're going to go from the state of suffering they're in to that resolved, happy state. But we just have to believe it's possible, that there's, beyond just our own energy, there is an energy of the universe, which is wise, which is loving, which they have guides and angels and support. And when you put it out there into the universe, I'd like something different than this. I don't know how to get there, but I know that there must be something better than this. And I'm willing to go on that journey. When people make that choice, they start moving, and the energy around them starts moving towards them and brings them books and opportunities and people and ideas that pop into their head. And gee, maybe I could do something with my art, or maybe, this thing will make me happy, or maybe I will, go outside and just get some fresh air, or you get led on this sort of inspirational journey when you're willing to do that. And if you can, you don't have to solve the problem for the person. You can just hold that space of that it's possible, and that we don't have to know how. We can surrender that how to the universe, and we can allow the results to come in. And then, when that process happens, you're better able to see the person in a positive light, to see yourself in a positive light, and still be very sensitive. It gets you out of the fixing mindset as well, so that you're not trying to fix that other person so you feel better, which is actually a selfish move. If we're stepped into somebody else's feet, uh, we need them to feel better before we can feel better. But if we're stepped back, it can be a live and let live. Like, they can be where they are, and that can be met with grace and acceptance and love and compassion, true compassion for their suffering, and a wish and a desire for them to move through that suffering. But yeah, and so that's a piece of it. And I want to get into a little bit more of like maybe some of the mechanisms of why it's hard to step back into our own feet. But mainly, I also, just before I go in any further, I'd also just want to say that it is also okay. Like, shame doesn't need to be invited to this party. That it's also okay if you naturally step into other people's shoes. I do it. It's a natural thing, and it's actually a good thing. The ability to, and the desire to understand another person's suffering is a noble quality. It is a good, it is still empathy, but it's an empathy that hurts you, and it hinders the other person. And it's okay that it's happening, but it's like, now that you are in that ability to step into another person's shoes, it's now cultivating the ability and the willingness and the inner permission that it's important to step back and stay stepped back, and to be aware that there's a tendency to leap outside of you, to leap out of yourself to help other people, and to it's very important to sort of gather your resources back to yourself, your energy back to yourself. So yeah, so that's kind of I could talk all day long about this topic because it's something that has been very key for my own spiritual growth and development, and also has been a big reason why I just absolutely fell in love with Reiki, because it immediately gave me tools to step back inside myself and to stay inside myself and to offer myself that compassion and to stay in that sort of highly tuned, compassionate, intuitive, empathetic space without feeling the being bombarded with the pain of the world, which was just like a miracle for me. It was such a great thing. So but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that for right now. But Kyla, I'd love to hear what you have to say, because I know you're also a wonderfully sensitive, empathetic soul like me. How does that all sit with you? Do you have anything to? I'm curious about any tools or resources or anything you have to share about that.
Well, thank you for all of that. I think that was beautiful, and I definitely resonated with all of that. One thing that might be helpful, that has been helpful for me, that I am currently learning and exploring on my journey, is it can be helpful to understand other reasons why I might be stepping into other people's energy. And there's a huge desire to help people and compassion. That's definitely a main part of it, but it's not necessarily all of it. And to fully be able to become aware of when I'm doing it and how I'm doing it, the why factor is a really big piece. So I have, one of the things I have discovered is that another reason why I'm stepping into other people's energy is because I have a deep pattern. I think this is probably a very common empath subconscious belief, that I'm only supporting someone if I dive headfirst into all of their stuff and I take it on and I put it in my backpack and I carry it around too. And the deeper belief underneath that, it's not just the helping, but it's also that, like you were saying about the martyrdom that we were taught, that I am not enough or doing enough or being enough if I don't support in that way. So that brings the shame piece in, as you were talking about. That is a worthiness piece. So it's also on an even deeper level than we might realize, might be about our own worthiness and what our deeper beliefs are about that, and thinking that we are only truly worthy and supportive and helping if we are doing that for other people. But that's not our stuff. What we need to do instead is step back and work on our worthiness, because that is our work. But that's another good thing to be aware of, is that this is something that you and I were talking about yesterday, that stepping back. Another part of it that can be difficult is when you're stepping back from somebody else's pain. On a deeper level, another reason you might not want to step back into your own self or step away from their pain, or on some level not want to become aware of when you're doing that and learn to stop, is because when you are stepping back into yourself, you might be stepping back into your own pain or your own shame or whatever was triggered by their stuff, that pain and trauma too. And that is very, very difficult, which is another reason why Reiki is so beautiful, to keep working on our own healing journey so that it's easier to step back into our own selves. So we're not stepping back into that. And I also just wanted to add to, just as empaths, be mindful. I know this is common for everybody in general, but empaths being so sensitive, I think we're also very sensitive, very, very sensitive to our inner critic voices. So I loved what you were saying about how stepping into other people's stuff is ultimately selfish, but I just wanted to emphasize it's very unintentional selfishness, something we're very unaware of. So be very gentle with that. Just be very gentle with that. And any voices that come up around that. It's not intentional. It is coming from a place of love and a desire to help. And something that is really good to start cultivating for yourself too is to practice whatever love and compassion and support you want to give to that other person. do your best to practice that for yourself too, not just for all of your own things that you're healing work, but even for whenever you're supporting someone. Because if you step into their shoes to feel what they're feeling, and then you step back, you still have your own feelings about it, and you have still experienced their feelings about it, and you have a lot of feelings. So just also treat yourself with that same love and compassion that you're giving them, because you are also going to be going through a lot in supporting them.
Yes.
And that will also keep you more grounded and
Yes.
centered too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that, when you start observing sort of what things that you might step into certain people's things, but not everybody's, and maybe over particular topics and not others. And that it kind of gives you a little roadmap to your own healing, your own self-healing journey, that there's that it often there is a pattern within the people that are difficult to step back from. And usually that's your pattern, not theirs, because you could switch the person and you would still be doing it. It's not about them. It's actually about you and your own healing. Yes. And that, sort of recognizing when you're stepping out, that there can be all kinds of reasons why you do that in the first place, which I love that you say, of like exploring, like, oh, here I'm noticing now, because you can only solve a problem when you can see it. I'm noticing that I'm standing somewhere other than within myself. So I've caught it, which is huge, because most of the time we just sort of are running around, and we're not noticing it. It's like, okay, so now I see it. And just very gently is like, I wonder why I did that, or what was sort of the motivation to step out. So, and that can be an interesting thing, as long as it's phrased gently. And then also very gently, like inquiring or being curious about, like bringing a curiosity to it. So of just, like, I wonder how I got here. And it also kind of doesn't matter how I got here. Here I am. And now it's sort of like, what is the barrier between me and stepping back? And sometimes it is a belief pattern that it's bad to step back. And so that's what the thing is like, actually, it's the other way, is that it's it's bad to not step back. And I don't want to use the word bad either, because that can, like you said, it's like there's little shame minefields all over the place, and it's really
the
hard.
Wrong voices.
Yes. And so, because, and I think that's the key thing, is that what we're seeking is true compassion and true empathy. So true compassion includes you to an equal amount. That you don't put yourself in danger or give yourself a disservice. You don't downgrade your own needs and upgrade other people's needs, that they are somehow more important than you, or vice versa. And sometimes we can get into this teeter-totter as well, of like being overly invested with people and then having to retreat for our own self-care. And so if we have an equal, if you can and I always think that's like the journey to mastery of when we're teaching Reiki master level, it's like, can you hold your own intention as easily as you can hold the intention or that positive vision for another person, with the same degree of intensity, that wish for them to be well and happy? Can you wish that equally for you as well? And that's the inner work. So sometimes we don't step back because there's shame in the way. That to step back means that we're a bad person, or we're not enough, or we're not helping enough, which is usually something that we've picked up either from our culture or from our families. And sometimes you were even punished for not like you know, leaping in for and being enmeshed with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so just recognizing that and doing the healing work to get that pain out of there, you know, just sort of checking it out, you know, and in and usually, you know, I find instead of fighting shame, surrounding it with love, like giving it empathy, the parts of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves that are critical, giving those parts more love is really the you know, to love the parts of ourselves that don't love us.
Mm-hmm.
And which is a difficult thing to do, but that is really what dismantles shame, is to think an opposite thought. It's like, what if the opposite what if the opposite thought is true, which is that stepping back is actually a compassionate move, not distancing. Um, and then the other reason that we sometimes don't step back is because we have our own pain, and
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes as a way to heal ourselves, we're solving other people's problems and not taking care of our own. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like the like very classic, like the cobbler's children have no shoes. You know, the cobbler is busy making shoes for the entire community, but not tending to their own self, their own family. Um, and it's that I always, for me, like very early on in my spiritual journey, I was thinking, I have to be my own best friend. You know, I have to talk to myself the way I would talk to another person. I need to also take my own good advice. And I would recognize that I would say the same thing over and over and over to people and recommend the same books. And just this idea of like, oh, if I'm recommending that to them, then maybe I could use that too. And not always, but often there's a piece of it in there. And that when you do um, that self-healing, then it's easier. Like everything gets easier with self-healing, and that it's easier to be inside yourself if inside yourself is a safe, comfortable place to be,
Mm-hmm.
and to create this warm, loving environment inside the self, so that you can nurture yourself and meet your needs, and have compassion and empathy for yourself as much as you have it for another person. Seeing yourself as strong, resilient, courageous, that you've got resources within you, that no matter what, there's a force of the universe that's working for you as well as everyone else to bring you the opportunities, the resources, the people, the books, the information that you need in the moment you need it. And it's really sort of that step into faith and step into trust and support and doing the things that cultivate that feeling inside, I think is really important. um, yeah, and particularly with empathy, it's that um, giving yourself an equal amount of empathy, giving yourself an equal amount of compassion, and knowing that that's a lifelong striving journey sometimes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like this, and that's why I think it's like it's the road to mastery. Like you never kind of get there, maybe you do, but it's a continual thing. It's like you're not one and done. It's not like it's more like thinking of it more like breathing than something that you complete and then it's done and you check it off the list and it's like, great, I conquered that fear and it's done and it's over and I never have to come back to it. It's like the truth is that those things, those our struggles, those things are, you know, um, we come back to it, but it shifts and it changes and it evolves and it softens, and it's sort of like the ocean, wearing down a pebble, that it takes sort of this consistent action, and gentle. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to get a bulldozer out. It can just be this sort of gentle wave, and being kind and compassionate to you and every step of the way as well. Yeah, is that's a big piece of it. The other thing that I thought was such a neat question is like, how does it feel to stay out of other people's stuff? So how does it feel to be sort of you in alignment with you? And for me, what I feel is sort of this fiery resolve. I feel grounded. I feel certain. I feel sort of charged up and in this space of possibility and creativity and taking positive action and optimism and hope. And sort of this holding this fierce and steady gaze on other people's well-being, while at the same time being able to have this sort of compassionate awareness of where they are. It feels great. It feels great and amazing. And for me, when I'm lined up with me, I know I have more to give. The actions I take are more guided. I'm more in sort of my intuitive divine self. And then when I'm in that sort of centered space, the things that I do and the actions I take are, the results are better. And it goes further. And then I can sort of leave other people to be. I can let them come to me with questions. I can follow up with people. I can let my guidance sort of nudge me as like, maybe just send that person a little heart emoji, and and it's not so. I found it softened all of my relationships, and it created an atmosphere where people could actually feel safer to come to me with more things. And for me, it meant that, on a very personal level, it meant that a lot of my health issues resolved. I felt more stable. The impact on me was lessened, and it just sort of helped me create better, healthier relationships within myself and between other people. And yeah, so there's a lot of pluses to it. And yeah, and it's really about like grounding, bringing in the energy through all of your chakras and surrounding yourself with that rainbow or bubble of light, and doing that as many times as you need to feel like you are sort of, all of your energy is gathered together. And that, sort of like when you notice that you're elsewhere, then just taking that moment to breathe and center and come back. And it doesn't matter how many times you need to do that. It's like, oh, here I am again, like somewhere else. Breathe, center, come back. And yeah, and then over time, what you end up doing is you cultivate this sort of muscle to bring yourself back, and then also the strength to and stability to stay there. And yeah, and that's been such a huge blessing for me. Kyla, did you want to add anything, or anyone else, if you wanted to share your comments or insights? Love to hear that.
That was beautiful. Thank you. I love touching on how it feels, because that's something that I've been exploring as I've been becoming aware of, because when you're in it and you're feeling all of their stuff, the other thing to help, and you could be swamped by your own emotions too, of course, but it can be very difficult to distinguish where you are and what's yours and what's theirs. But if you are in their stuff, you are almost certainly more likely to get swamped and overloaded and just be, and then it's, as you said, it's really hard to give them more or hold space for them or witness where they're at because you are overloaded by your own stuff and by their stuff. So I loved how you were describing how it feels when you step back, because as empaths, being such feelers, I feel like that is a really good knowledge to have, how it feels, because a lot of things come back to that for us. How does it feel? It feels courageous to step back. It feels kind. It feels compassionate. And I really loved how you said too that people feel safer coming to you with things. It made me think of, and people might not be aware on any level that they feel safer, but on some level, as you're practicing this, they just might feel safer. But some people might be aware on a conscious level, and that's important too. So as empaths, like I have another friend who's an empath, so she's on this journey with me, and she is aware that I take on her stuff. We are both aware of this. And because she is such a strong empath too, when she's aware it's happening, her first instinct, her first response is to apologize and say, I'm sorry, I don't want you to take this stuff on. And what I always tell her is that's not her job. It's my job. She's an amazing, amazing teacher for me. That allows me to practice awareness that I've stepped into her stuff. And where am I at and where is she at? And now I need to step back. That's not her job. It's not her job for me to separate for me. That's my job. Her job is to take care of her stuff. My job is to step back out. So it's great learning for me. But because she's such an empath too, that's one other layer to it, is that she can feel bad about it. So when you're working on your own stuff and you know that you are, and you know that you are comfortable stepping back and you're okay taking your own stuff back, even if you are still working on it, because we're always working on it, at least you can say to that person, that's okay. This is my work. This is my job. You're fine where you're at. You just be where you're at. I'm working on this. So they still feel safe coming to you, but they can release that one part of feeling bad that you're taking their stuff on.
Yeah.
Because that's not theirs to feel bad about. And if they're empaths and they're aware of it, then they might. So that's another layer of safety, whether it's consciously something they're aware of or not. So I really like that too.
Yes. And beautiful too is that you get these great relationships and dynamics that are these sort of teaching and mutual sort of teaching experiences where you can actually have it's lovely to be able to have a conversation of like, oops, sorry, I just stepped in your stuff, and it's also I think it's sort of like to be as gentle with that as you would if you just sort of like you backed up and you just accidentally stepped on somebody else's foot. It's like it was like, oops, I just happened to be here and now I'm here and now I'm just gonna get off of your foot. I'm not gonna continue standing on your foot and apologize to you. I'm actually going to move off of your foot and then we can talk about it like later.
That's a really great analogy. And it is really beautiful to have that kind of relationship if you do have, because not everybody has this kind of language or understands any of it or wants to go there. So it's really helpful to, if you have someone you can talk to about it, because then for me, that helps process it and expands my awareness and my practice of it when I can say, whoop, I think I'm taking your stuff on. And I see what's happening, and it's learning for both of us. And then we can both practice reeling our stuff back.
Yes, absolutely.
Really nice.
And there's definitely times too where there are people who will actively encourage you to stay on their foot, to stay in their stuff, and they will tell you the opposite, that like if you're not upset, then you don't care about me. If I'm, and that if you're if I'm upset, you can't be happy. And that is something altogether different. And it's sometimes it's like taking it, sort of being careful and compassionate and that sort of thing about of and just sort of aware of what other people are going through. But at the same time, I think when you have that sort of disparity of that there's something else going on for that person, and that it's like, I always think it's like you can't offer somebody something they don't have. Everybody ultimately wants to be joyful and happy. And if you are miserable, how could you, all you're going to do is offer, if you're miserable with them, miserable with company is still miserable. And if you're miserable with them, it's hard for them to, it's harder for them to get to joy, even though they might say opposite. And then it also can create resentment within you, because you jump into their stuff, you feel miserable with them, they go on to fix it, and take action, then they feel joyful, and then they're like, why are you feeling so miserable? And they don't go with you, they don't jump into your misery at all. So sometimes there are those dynamics out there. And then also sometimes, there's people who will prey on that or manipulate that to sort of play the victim card, and not, they have no intention of getting out or getting better. There's a sometimes with people who are in a state, they're really stuck, and they don't want to get better. They don't want to be happy, which is also a hard thing for most empaths and light workers to understand, because happiness is natural to us, and joyfulness is always in our heart, and is something we wish for everybody. And it's hard to understand why people might turn away from it, which also can kind of keep us stuck a little bit more, because we're trying to understand something we don't understand. And so it's either way, the solution is to step back, and because even somebody who is stuck in sort of a victim mindset, they don't see any hope, and they don't believe that anything can change for them, and they're really in a dark place, it's still better for you to not be in it with them. Their greatest chance of getting out is for you to just see them with a kind, compassionate awareness, and know that one way or another, that things could potentially change, and just sort of, see them with that light of kindness, is usually the best thing. Because sometimes that if they've never been around people who have ever looked for the good inside them, to have somebody say, I see your light, they'll be like, what do you mean? I don't see it. It's not there. I've been told my whole life I'm a horrible, mean person. Da, 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 da. It's like, no, you maybe have done things that have been not so great. Your actions might have been that, but who you are, the core of you, is good, is light, is compassionate and joy. And if you change your behavior, you're out of the pain and suffering. And that can be a revelation for people. And I think that always does people well, to just sort of hold this beam of light on their good, their grace, their connection, their divinity, that spark of the universe that lives inside their heart. That I think really is such a gift that we can give people, and we can give ourselves as well. So
yes,
wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you, Kyla, for being here today. Thank you, everybody who's able to join live or later. Such a wonderful conversation. I'm sure we'll be talking about this topic. I'll be talking about this to the end of my days, because I think it's just so amazing and fascinating and important for people, and is really the core of my work.
Yes, me too. And there's a lot to learn about it still.
There's so much and there's always another layer to this onion. And yeah, so I just want to encourage you to take excellent care of yourself, to value yourself as much as you value everybody else, to really nourish and nurture your own heart. Maybe to journal a little bit after this and pick one thing that will light up the spark of light inside your heart. Something kind and loving that you can do or say or think or feel about yourself today that will give you a little bounce in your step. You can check out this and a whole pile of other resources on the lunaholistic.com blog and website. And we have a bunch of upcoming courses that will be posted very, very soon. And you can join us for other podcasts. They'll be all posted on the lunaholistic.com website as we go. So I hope you will have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining us again, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Geneva.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.